Hello there, and welcome to Gooner U, where there are no degrees because the learning never stops. I'm Dove, a TA here at Gooner U, and my friend Keith is our stalwart distinguished professor of Arsenal and football studies. Enter our classroom as we discuss the week's news involving Arsenal, Premier League, Champions League, and international football, all from the perspective of a couple of Americans. This week, Arsenal traveled to Bilbao to face Athletic Club in our first Champions League match of the season, and then returned home to battle Manchester City at the Emirates. Hello, Keith.
Hello, Dove. I know we have a lot to talk about, and so I really don't want to delay on this. There's just one pressing question I've got to get your opinion on.
All right, hit me.
What did you think of the blue kit in action for the first time? This is the one. I know everybody loves when we talk kits. First time seeing the blue, I kind of liked it.
Yeah, it's funny. So I don't remember if we talked about it on the show proper or not, but we did a short about it, and I was kind of down on it. I didn't like the symmetry of the lightning bolts was kind of my main criticism of it. But I have to say, like, seeing it for 90 plus minutes on the pitch, the colors are really good. Like, I think I could see it in my closet potentially, like, just kind of gritting my teeth a little bit with the lightning bolts, but the colors are so nice. Like, I like it a lot. I think I probably will end up getting it. So yeah,
I agree. I thought I'm not quite in the buy the shirt category, but I did think it looked pretty sharp. I have to say there were some negative comments I heard from people about the silver gray shorts. I liked it.
You did like it?
I should say I didn't hate it.
Yeah. I wouldn't go so far as to say that I hated it, but I think that is the worst part of it. The socks and shorts, I think, were both that same kind of silver color. It just seems like kind of a non sequitur. It seems like it just doesn't go with the rest. Like, that's just what you had lying around, and you just put it together with the shirt, kind of, which obviously isn't what actually happened, but.
Well, so it is supposed to be. So we talk about the clash of the shirts, but a lot of times they look at the shorts too in terms of thinking about the clashing. And so it's supposed to be, I'm pretty sure, a blue short, but with Athletic wearing black, the blue and the black was just too close, and so they. Oh. So you'll see that sometimes it is. I mean, I wasn't surprised. I don't think we talked about this last week. Going in, knowing that they were red and white stripes, and knowing that our two kits are red and white and white. Mm-hmm. I kind of figured this was the competitive debut of the blue kit. I expect, by the way, we'll wear this. We'll wear the red with white sleeves up at Newcastle next weekend. But yeah,
I happened to pass a Newcastle fan earlier today, heading into a store. I asked him how the match went, and he said they drew at Bournemouth, I guess. So
I was about to say, when you passed a Newcastle fan, was the store a Foot Locker? Because that's not a Newcastle fan. That's not a Newcastle fan. He just works there.
Right. That would have been funny. No, frozen yogurt shop. But and he had an accent, so yeah, he may be a Geordie himself.
A proper Geordie. All right.
Yeah. All right. But yeah, so you're saying those silver shorts, we shouldn't expect those to come back in all likelihood? That those aren't the typical shorts that are supposed to go with that kit?
I think it's they're there in case of a clash, so we have the blue that goes with it, but it is one of the ways, apparently, because a lot of times the referees are actually looking down sort of at the player's lower body, because that's, of course, where the ball usually is, and so it's you want differing kit colors to help distinguish between, or different colors of the shorts to help distinguish between them, and that's part of why that is. So, again, because they were wearing black and the dark blue that it would have been one of the same shades as you saw on the kit itself. So that was, I guess, considered too close, and so so that's why we got the silver. I in terms of will we see them again, I have not really looked ahead to what our future opponents' shirt choices are, potentially are going to be.
You don't keep a calendar where each match day you have like the jersey of each club that we're going to face. You don't do that.
No, I check the website, honestly. When I leave, they have Arsenal has it as they don't say it, but the graphics are in the color that they're using. So I at that point I can go, all right, I'm wearing this one today. But some of them are easier. Yeah. Like, they're at home, it's going to be this. So,
Right. It's funny. Like, I guess now that you mentioned clash shorts, I guess it is something that I had noticed before, looking maybe not at this kit because I hadn't really been considering that particular kit before. But yeah, I have noticed other short colors. I didn't realize why that was the case. And now I can see that would make sense. Yeah.
And there are a handful of rare occasions, I think they've been in Europe, where Arsenal will wear red shorts with the red shirt. It's not a good look. It's not good. It's a little, it's
Liverpool knockoff.
it's just like, I mean, so Liverpool typically seems to have like a darker red. So that for them, it kind of works a little better. With us, because it's almost always so bright red, it's almost a little too much. It's a lot.
Too much red.
It's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. You mentioned the red and white stripes of Bilbao. Was it just me, or seeing the crowd on screen who was almost entirely wearing their home shirts? It looked pink. It looked like I was watching a Miami match, because the red and white kind of faded together and all kind of looked pink.
No, I thought they looked. It is quite an impressive look, given they were all basically all in those shirts. They love that team. They are.
Yeah.
I assume. I don't know. Did they mention it at all when you were watching? I don't remember. The Basque only policy at Athletic, the club.
You had mentioned it before. I don't think they mentioned it on the broadcast. Not that I remember.
Yeah, probably not. But at that point, basically they only take players who are born in or descended from people who were born in the Basque region of Spain, and that principle is sort of modified over time. But it is kind of interesting how they work from such a limited pool of players and are able to produce some really solid teams. I think they said they're the only team other than Real and Barcelona who hasn't been relegated from La Liga. Now, La Liga is not as old as the top division in England. It's more, it's pre-Civil War, but it's definitely maybe post World War One, I think, even.
So wait, so
Spanish Civil War,
which was when 1930s.
Yeah.
I was thinking for a second. Wait a second. No, not that Civil War.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess so. We're gonna try something this time. We're gonna kind of talk about the week's matches holistically. We'll see how that goes. This may be the only time we'll see. But the first thing was just to kind of lay it out there, what happened and when. So we did play Bilbao. That was a Tuesday match on the 16th of September. And we ended up defeating them 2-0. So that was a good result there. And then as we record today, we faced Manchester City and drew 1-1, kind of portending a little bit like that was definitely a draw that felt like a victory compared to the draw that felt like a defeat around this time last year against them, to me at least. But yeah, this is our fifth match of the Premier League season, first match of a Champions League season.
Yeah, we can kind of talk about that. But yeah, really interesting week. We're kind of at that point, as we've talked about, where the games are really going to start to come to at a time. And it really kind of leaves us in an interesting place with the opening of the Champions League and sort of what we can possibly do there. But also in the Premier League, I mean, what an opening we've had to that so far. And we're not quite fit through. I think really we'll talk about the City game, but obviously looking ahead just a tiny bit, we'll play Newcastle next weekend. I mean, you think we've already played City, Liverpool, and Newcastle in the first 6 games. And away to Old Trafford, which is never an easy game, certainly for us. So, an aggressive start to the season. But overall, yeah, we'll sort of get holistic on it towards the end as well. But overall, it's I don't know. I'm still sort of coming down from today's game, so I have lots of thoughts about the second game, but I have ones about the Champions League too. I mean, first off, just it's interesting how much the Arsenal fan base has turned into the Bilbao tourist board. Any reports I got from people who were like Arsenal reporters or journalists who were at the game talk about just how awesome Bilbao was, and so I guess the Spanish Basque is the region should be on my vacation list now, because it sounds between that and San Sebastian, which where Real Sociedad is, it sounds fantastic, the whole region. Which of course we have, Arsenal has a lot of connections with Real Sociedad. That was Mikel Arteta's boyhood club. That's who he started playing for. We got Mikel Merino for them, Zubimendi, Kieran Tierney went there alone. So you could tell some of the guys were a little more amped up, and I'm sure they were amped up to play us.
Yeah, and also according to the broadcast team, it's been over a decade, about 11 years or so since they were last in the Champions League. So good on them returning after a long spell.
And that does sort of add a little bit to it. I mean, I'm willing to be generous about it because we won, but it does create a really great, but it creates a great atmosphere with not just the with the fans and everything, not just the shirts, but all the chanting and the singing, and it apparently, by all accounts, it was quite loud there early on. This is a new version of their stadium, and apparently it does a really good job trapping the noise. So it was which we should add, by the way. I mean, even though we're definitely a stronger side than Bilbao, that is make these kinds of things tricky as well. Like to catch a team or to face a team in that moment where they're coming back in and there's that extra motivation. And there were points I thought where we were a little, I don't want to say hesitant, but that we sort of let them kind of expend their energy before asserting ourselves forward.
Right. Yeah, and I was going to say, I remember it was not all that long ago that we returned to the Champions League, and I remember how that felt at the time, and that was memorable also. So so both of these matches really spent a long time scoreless, I guess you would say, right? That was kind of one.
The Champions League one, yes, definitely.
Without a goal. Okay, let me rephrase. You're right.
Okay.
That one spent a long time with no score by either side.
Oh, okay, I see what you did.
I was saying I was clumsily trying to say with long stretches with no goal being scored.
Okay, yeah, got it. That makes sense. Okay, there we go. Right.
But yeah, so ultimately it was the pairing of Trossard and Martinelli that broke that in the Bilbao match, and then it was also Martinelli who scored our goal after basically almost a full 90 without a goal from either team in the second one. So interesting there.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can talk about Martinelli overall more in a little bit, but I think in both cases one of the things you saw, and I think this is less for the Martinelli goal in the City game, its impact I think is pretty self-explanatory. He scored the equalizer in stoppage time. It kind of tells that's all you need to know about it in that sense. But I think too, in both of these games, those first goals that we saw, Martinelli against Bilbao and then Haaland for City, I think that it's a great example of the way that goals change and impact games. And I think it has a lot to do with both cases, how these games unfolded tactically. I'm kind of curious your thoughts on this. As I watched the Bilbao game, and let me rephrase that. I did not watch it live. I knew the score and watched it on replay. But as I was watching, particularly that first half, I was getting a sense of deja vu from last season, right? Long spells of possession, but not feeling like we were quite generating the real good opportunities we needed to. And it kind of felt like, we're playing well, but without that goal, you leave yourself open to being sucker punched on the other end. And so Martinelli coming on and scoring kind of it takes a lot of the air out of it. Like, okay, we're going to be okay. It's fine.
Yeah. I mean, there were a bunch of chances, especially in the first half of the Bilbao match. Like we played well. I mean, like Gyökeres had a couple close calls, a couple shots on goal, a diving header that was not far off the mark. But there were good moments, and it just didn't. It was like last season. It just didn't quite get over the goal line,
Yeah, and I do enjoy Gyökeres's willingness to take shots. Yeah, a lot of them weren't very good. I think he had one where he sort of he kind of an awkward chance, just kind of rolled right to the keeper. But I just sort of love that he's willing to go and do that, because it has been something we haven't quite had, is players who are as willing to pull the trigger. And so as an out and out striker, he's more willing to let's just try it and see what happens. Which I think can be helpful in these kinds of games, even though ultimately none of his chances really came off in Bilbao. I sort of like the attitude he's bringing to that.
Yeah, definitely. I think in the City match, I think he wasn't quite as dangerous. I didn't see as much as many chances from him as kind of other players that were making the better runs toward the goal. You could still see him trying. You could still see him getting into some dangerous spots, but yeah, it didn't quite materialize there. I mean, in the City game, there were a few crosses that were really nice that threaded through everybody, unfortunately, including us.
Yeah. It was clear to me he was being doubled. Like, if you watch, every time he was getting the ball on that right side, this is Madueke, he had two guys on him, or two guys watching him constantly, and so he wasn't able to make the same kind of runs he was doing against Forest, or we were able to see, I think, who did he come on against? Did he play the Liverpool game? He came on. Saka was hurt against Leeds, right? Yeah, so we were able to see him make some of those runs. He wasn't really able to do that here, and I mean that's kind of, I don't want to say the limitations of the player, but the other teams watch you, right? And so when they see that kind of thing happening, they're able to make those adjustments and come in and say, okay, whatever happens, say Madueke is not going to beat us down that right wing, and he created some dangerous chances, and overall I thought he was okay, but certainly not. Everyone was very high on him. I gave him player of the week last week. I mean, I thought he played really well against Forest, but you could see right away, okay, yeah, but there's a reason why Saka will start when he's healthy.
Yeah. There is one moment in particular I'm thinking of where he was trying to make a run in near the byline, and he just outfoxed the two guys who were marking him and did get through and did make a cross. And again, it was one of those that ended up not materializing anything, but there were some good moments from him, definitely. And he was really, in the first half, he was the most dangerous player. And then he got subbed out for Saka, in the second half, so we didn't get to see what he would do there, but...
Yeah, although I will say though, in terms of the danger he was creating, they weren't really turning into chances. Like he's moving around, combining, but I didn't walk away. Like, they showed some of the stats of the post game. I somewhere in a post game I saw Saka's numbers were far and away better. Now, obviously, game state plays a little bit of that too, but then again, we talk about the idea of goals change games and how Martinelli scoring kind of opened things up, kind of settled the game a little bit for us against Athletic. I think we could talk about the Haaland goal a little bit in the City game and how it allowed them to play us in a particular way that we were going to struggle with. And so I think scoring early the way they did allowed them to be, I think, even more conservative than they might have been intending.
Yeah, no, I could see that. You definitely saw every time we had the ball, they were playing like a back five just about the whole time. Just kind of, really making it difficult for us to get in.
They played us like a mid-table team, which makes sense. They are in 9th currently. I'm gonna ride this a little bit because Arsenal has gotten a lot of negative feedback from some of their past performances, thinking at Anfield earlier this year, or the way we played in the second half at City last year, for not being as aggressive, for not taking the game to them. If that's the standard we're going to go with, and I realize this is more commentary than actual gameplay, but if that's the commentary we're going to go with, if that's the analysis we're going to take, then City's performance today was cowardly. They were afraid of us. They were absolutely sitting back and trying to defend. They were, taking cheap shots. They were cynically fouling. Shirt tugs everywhere. Donnarumma was taking forever on the ball. All the things you see people complain about Arsenal the last few years, not entirely without reason, but all these kind of complaints you see, and they were doing it incredibly. And in a sense, Martinelli's goal is somewhat cathartic because it meant they weren't going to get away with it. Like, that was the frustrating thing about the Haaland goal. It's like, oh my God, they're really going to get away with this. They're going to come in here and play like they're, like they're Burnley or, someone else and walk away with this. Given how much money they spend, given the talent they've got on that team and that roster, frankly, it's embarrassing. Like, they had 30% possession. Like, it is by far the worst performance they've ever had. And this is a team, by the way, that loves possession. That's like the central to their identity and how they play. They had 30%. Unbelievable.
And we grew the margin so we had like 67-33% in the first half, and we grew that in the second half because they doubled down on that strategy and just really embraced the bunkering.
Yeah, and some of that was you talk about game state too. Obviously, we were being more aggressive. We'll start talking about the substitutions and who we were bringing on and what we were trying to do and how that was putting them under pressure. But I mean, they came in intent on a smash and grab. Like that's how they were trying to play the game. You could tell. And we talked about this like with Liverpool and the way they played us and all that. There is an element of respect they're showing you with that, but it gets frustrating because it comes from a side that certainly had no problems being critical of us when we were doing it. And you could see it too. They were trying to draw fouls. They were trying to draw reaction. Bernardo Silva's performance was an embarrassment, but that's kind of just how he plays. That tackle on Gabriel is arguably a red card.
Yeah.
Like that is so cheap. It's complete. It's well after the ball's gone. There's zero intent to do anything other than to take a player out. It's incredibly dirty.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the fact that he was still on the pitch was right there is already okay if that's how it's going to go.
And then you had the thing with Trossard. Like, what did you make of that?
I'll say this. In a vacuum, it was actually fairly well officiated. Like, that is easily a thing where you could see the referee giving out cards. He pulls them both over, tries to get them to calm down. And look, they're stupid, cheeky little plays by both of them. That Silva ends up kicking the ball and it hits Trossard. And again, just that wasn't the, he kicks it and it goes off Trossard out of bounds. Happens, no big deal there. And then he goes and picks the ball up and flicks it back in field, and he hits Trossard again.
While he's down on the ground, because when he kicked it into Trossard, it was like into his crotch area.
Yeah, right.
It like bounced off of him and went out of bounds. So he's kind of down on all fours, kind of collecting himself for a minute. Yeah. Right.
And at which point he picks himself up and then chucks the ball at Silva, who of course acts like he's been shot. Oh, God. But see, that's just it. What they're trying to do there, they're trying to go to response. I mean, because we've had games where they do stuff like that, and then Granit Xhaka or Big Gabby comes running in, he pushes, and all of a sudden there's a card that comes out. They're absolutely trying to do it. So I respect our players' ability. I respect the referee's ability to officiate the game in a way that was largely fair in that regard. Like, that's an easy one to simply put, to throw out cards when they probably, it's really just like stupid, cheeky stuff. Like, it's not, there's no foul here. On the other hand, how is that not as bad as what Trossard picked up a second yellow for in this same game last year, right? The game at the Etihad was this time of year last year. That's what that was, that second yellow, and of course different referees and all that. But it's just one of those like, what do you even say to that? It's just so it's so obnoxiously inconsistent, and sound like an internet meme. I can't believe they're getting away with it. It's just so frustrating. Yeah. So I credit to us for keeping our heads, and to call back from years earlier, Bernardo Silva can go step on a Lego.
Yeah. We'll add him to the Lego list. The other thing I was wondering, so talking about sending off players from Arsenal last season, at least one or two of those were, one of the yellows was kicking the ball away, and I saw that happen 2 or 3 times during this match without a call.
No, we're not giving cards away for that anymore. That moment passed.
Honestly though, is that removed as a point of emphasis for this season? We were told that was a point of emphasis last season.
Right. So you understand how a point of emphasis is, quote unquote, supposed to work, right? Let me explain how the point of emphasis actually works. What it means is we're going to call this thing super tight for like the first 2 or 3 months of the season, after which we're just going to kind of forget that it was a rule, Same with stoppage time, right? We're really going to count this out, and then people complain about, why is there always 10 minutes of stoppage time? Just kidding. We're just going to make it up like we always do. That's how that works. So you're right. It was a point of emphasis. A bunch of players got carded for it because, of course, they did. Some of them were ours. Not all of them were Arsenal players, but some of them were ours because, of course, they were. And then we're just going to kind of forget about it for the rest of the year. Same with the time wasting. By the way, if the keeper holds the ball for 8 seconds, they're supposed to give away a corner.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. I'm just asking questions.
Yeah, so absolutely though, they played us for just about this entire match the way that we played them in that match at the Etihad last season when we had a 2-1 lead and we're down a player for the entire second half, right?
Yeah.
Like this whole match felt like that in reverse, which was, it felt bizarre.
And I think that's where we sort of get into in both games. I think the real change for Arsenal came with the substitutions. And I guess there's two ways I want to think about that. One is that the way we've been sort of historically trained to think about substitutions is that they are in some ways, especially the earlier they come, they're almost an admission of wrongdoing on the part of the manager, right? Oops, I made this plan. It didn't work out. So now here I'm changing it. As well as the other way, which is, now somebody's tired. So I need to do something different or bring in a different player so that we can bunker or push for an extra goal and all of that. But I think in both cases, the substitutes made really clear and obvious and almost immediate differences to the games. I've heard that a lot, sort of the post-game for today's match, about how it does suggest that Arteta may have gotten the initial lineup wrong. But I think in the game in Athletic, too, we did feel a little stale, a little stagnant. And having different players to come on was able to sort of change the pace of the game. I mean... Respond. Go. I don't mean to dominate that part of it, but
no, it's okay. No, I mean, I don't think it felt like he got anything wrong, really, in either case. I think maybe it wasn't working. I don't think it's necessarily not working in a way that he should have or could have foreseen. I do think for Martinelli, what we're really seeing is he's always been at least one of, if not always, the fastest set of legs on the pitch when he comes on. And what they're doing is they're starting to utilize that at a time where that advantage is really emphasized and expanded because everyone else is more tired at that point. So not only is he just faster by nature, but he's also not tired yet. And so that goal that he scored, the first one against Bilbao, I mean, that was absolutely him just outrunning the opposition, which maybe he would have done had he already been on the pitch for the whole match before that. But I'm sure it helped that he was fresh, right?
And absolutely.
And we've seen with Trossard, like he always seems to do better as a late sub than he does when he's been on from the beginning. That was interesting. That one I didn't necessarily expect against City, that Eze would come on late. Now Trossard did stay on. He didn't pull Trossard off until later. He didn't pull him off at halftime, which was interesting. I don't necessarily understand exactly what Arteta was going for with City, honestly.
Yeah. So I'd say the two critiques I would have about the lineup, and I'm thinking a little bit more today just because it's fresher in the mind, but you could point to the Bilbao game as well. First is the midfield. Merino, Rice, and Zubimendi, which, and it's not three defensive midfielders because that's not really what Rice is. It's not what Merino is, but it's not a very creative midfield. I guess I look at that and I'd have to check this out. Yeah, because it was the three of them in the Champions League game too, wasn't it?
It sounds right. Yeah, I think so.
And so I guess that's one. And it's interesting because how many times did we sit and talk about Wanyeri and Lewis Skelly and the impact they could have had and the things they did last season and what we were expecting from this year. And we really haven't seen them much at all. Now, I think some of that is their age. They are still, especially Wanyeri is what is he 18 yet?
18, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a lot to ask of him, but it did feel like we were. It did feel like we could have used, especially against City. Now, partly, I guess maybe we were surprised at just how much they sat back, and maybe that's the goal too. Maybe that lineup, that midfield lineup works if City doesn't grab the early goal, and so it allows us to have the three, to have the three of them there to sort of control possession and all that. But that was a game in a lot of ways that kind of cried out for a more progressive passer. Obviously, ideally would be Odegaard, not ready yet, but I feel like Wanyeri would have been a good one there, or even maybe Eze. We sort of have thought of Eze as the right wing or the left winger. He's not really a left wing. He is more of he does play a little more centrally. And you can see that sometimes too. When he's played a little bit first, he's kind of drifting towards the middle. And so there's
especially with Trossard today too, right? Like Trossard was still kind of occupying that left area. So with both of them on the pitch, he was definitely more central today. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's where he was being lined up, and I was talking with some of the guys about this. That when he came on, when Eze and Saka came on, Saka was going to be the right wing, and Eze was going to play more centrally, which is actually similar to how they played both the positions they would play with England. Obviously, they didn't do that in the last window because Saka didn't play, but. Like, it's not out of the question that you could use them in that way. And I do feel like maybe the way the game was going, maybe that was maybe there was just kind of they guessed wrong about how City would approach the game. I will say though, halftime substitution is an aggressive move, especially given the players who came on, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you saw Saka warming up in the first half. It was like after 20, 30 minutes. Is that typical when he's planning for them to come on at halftime to have them kind of stretch their legs a little bit during the first half?
Well, no, the guys are stretching. You saw everybody was doing that well. It's just, because they go and do the warm-up and then they're sitting on the bench and then you sort of hit that point where it's like, you feeling a little tight? Yeah, let's go up and just run around for a little bit. And so, because I saw Eze was there with them, a couple of the others were doing it too. And the City guys were out there doing their stretches as well. So it is just kind of... you see it a lot more, obviously, when you get to the second half. That's because guys have been sitting for an hour at that point. You really need I
just had Saka tunnel vision or something,
Right. I mean, he definitely gets a nice round of applause when he was there. I mean, I'm a little surprised at how quickly he came back. And Saliba, too. To have Saliba come in and to start and go 90. I'm a little surprised at that. Like, there's a part of me that thinks if we weren't playing Manchester City, he might have rested a little more.
Right.
He wouldn't have started this game, but I don't know. I thought he did. I thought he did okay. He generally did fine. We could talk about the goals City scored, but otherwise, I thought you could see that depth. I mean, you look at that lineup, that bench we had, and it was just so full of players who you would have no problem putting on in the game. And I think. On some level, I think the substitutions were good for us in both games and did good things for us. And but rarely do you see it kind of change. Certainly, rarely do you see it change the game quite in the way we saw in the Athletic game.
Well, yeah. But yeah, it was also interesting. So Saliba was on, and then we did toward the end of the City match, we got Saliba and Gabriel and Mascara all on the pitch at the same time. Which I don't know if we'll necessarily see that happen again.
Yeah, that was... I mean, by that point, it was really hard to get a read. I think that might have been also a little bit of Zubimendi potentially being tired. But yeah, because you've got kind of that back three. And at that point, those substitutions late, all the attacking players. Martinelli comes on, Eze, Wanyeri, Saka. I mean, that was... Gyökeres is still on. Declan Rice is still on. It felt... That was very Arsene Wenger. Like in late in games when Arsenal was chasing a goal or wanted a goal, it was just throw attackers on. Just put them on. Do we have 5 in the front? Yeah, just put on another one. Just keep going. It was very much emptying the bench of all of your forward players, and you kind of needed to because we needed a goal for that. And I mean, ultimately we were able to get one, but
right. So yeah, I also kind of was noticing with the City match, trying to get my thoughts together. I'd thought of something, and now I'm blanking on it. So whatever you have to say to fill this awkward non sequitur would be appreciated.
I will say, just add quickly, because we're going to talk more about the goals in the City game in just a second, but I do want to briefly touch on. I saw this and I thought it was wild. So Trossard had the assist on Martinelli's goal, which, by the way. Right. Great collection, great touch, great turn, great run, great finish. I mean, what a play for Martinelli.
Oh, yeah.
a few minutes later, was it 10, 15 minutes later, Trossard scores, Martinelli has the assist. Apparently, they said it's the first time in the Champions League that two substitutes have assisted on each other's goals like that.
Interesting. Okay.
It's a weird stat, but it's just kind of like, that's cool.
Yeah. Another funny stat that they brought up during the City match was that apparently Arsenal hasn't lost at home in September for like 13 years or something, when it really looked like it was going that way late in the second half. They were bringing that one out.
Interesting. Well, yeah, of course they were then. Interesting.
It gave me a little hope when they said that, like, oh, really? It's that rare? Okay, well, maybe they will pull something out.
Yeah, I mean, also, you think about it, as we've seen, that covers, I assume that was league games we haven't lost at home?
I don't remember if they said or not.
I mean, because you're probably talking about like 3, maybe 4 games a year.
Yeah.
So it's not super a lot, but it is a long time. You would think there might be one you just kind of, cough up, but
right.
It's not. Still got it.
So why don't we talk about the Haaland goal that kind of let off this match? So
he keeps scoring against.
He does. It's annoying. It was one of those where I could see as who was it who was carrying the ball up the field.
That was
I don't remember who it was.
We call them reindeers. I don't think it's how it's pronounced. And Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer over there. I don't know how it's... Reinders, I think, is how it's pronounced.
I think that's how they were saying it, yeah. So he was bringing it up, and you could tell with Haaland in tow on the wing, not too far away from him, but far enough, and with no one on him, you could tell that it was a slow-motion train wreck for us. And yeah, Gabriel, he lost Gabriel pretty far back, around the 18-yard box line, and Saliba just couldn't close the distance in time. I think that's probably why you were mentioning it earlier as far as Saliba coming back from injury. Maybe his ankle is a little iffy. Maybe if he were fully healthy, he would have been able to chase that down.
Yeah, I think if you want to be critical of the defense on that play, I think you would argue that Saliba really needs to step over and guard Haaland and have, I think it that must have been Timber who was coming back against Reinders. And yeah, that leaves you with, I think it was Doku out on the far on the cut way City was coming out on their left. And I feel like that was probably that would have been the best decision, because Doku, I'm not sure if it was Doku, I'm just going to use his name as a placeholder at least. Doku probably has the worst angle out of the three of them, because the problem is the ball then goes to Haaland and he's basically direct on goal, which means if you think about it, if we call it their formation, their movement is shifted to the right side. So the far right side is the one right in the middle, whereas towards the left at this point, I'm already losing my position. But anyway, yeah. Haaland and Reinders are more centrally located. The other player, Doku, is out further out. And so if he gets the ball in space, he's facing he's got a tighter angle and a more difficult shot potentially than Haaland, who is not going to miss from the kind of angle, from the kind of position he was getting. And I think on the one hand, you could be critical of them for about it. And sure, a couple of guys, Calafiori is really far forward, as he always is. Zubimendi's trying to get back. I think some of this is just Haaland is a cyborg. The speed he has to pull away from Gabriel. You say the 18-yard box. He blew past him at the halfway line. He was gone. And the way he's able to create that numerical mismatch, it just a man that size doesn't usually move that quickly. Right. And he really, I think, to a certain extent, I think that goal comes down to him being a freak of nature, and which I mean in a positive way, even though I can't stand him. But
it works for him, yeah.
Yeah, you almost can't stop that. That's what makes him Erling Haaland, is he puts himself in those positions. He's able to do those kinds of things, and so it's frustrating and annoying because, of course, it was a counterattack goal, and as you said, changed the game. Now City can basically just sit back and absorb pressure all day, which they pretty much did fairly effectively. But yeah, it was frustrating. It's a good finish. It's, Raya's kind of hung out to dry there. It's the first goal we've conceded in open play this season, which is, I was really hoping to not give it up to these guys, but
And that guy in particular.
And that guy in particular. Well, frankly, all of them. They're all they're all bothersome at this point. So.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess taking Saliba's viewpoint for a minute on that one, it was like he was caught between the player who has the ball and the player who he's clearly going to cross to. I think he was probably just hoping that Gabriel would catch up and take him like he was supposed to. And yeah, he probably made the decision too late. I think he did get there, but it was just, he could have done that a little bit sooner, but not that you would have necessarily, if he left Reinders open too soon, then Reinders just takes the shot and it still likely goes in,
Right. And to a certain extent, we're being critical of what is a split-second decision. He has to make that. He has to make that choice, and some of that I think too is that Haaland is coming in behind the play. So I don't know that he necessarily sees Haaland maybe as clearly as we might have liked. Obviously, we have the overhead sideline camera, so we see like you can see him coming. In a way maybe Saliba can't. I think
behind you.
The ideal move would have been Saliba drifts out to mark Haaland, and Timber is there kind of taking, comes after Reinders, forces Reinders to make a pass, which he probably then sends out to the free runner as Doku, but as we talked about, it's at that angle. I think maybe just in the split second, Saliba maybe makes... I don't know that it's the wrong... I'm describing it like it's the wrong choice. I don't know that that's quite right, given how far Haaland was when he starts that run. But I think it could just be as simple... It could very well be as he chose wrong. And sometimes that happens, for a player who is as good defensively as he is, sometimes those things happen, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah, so overall, this is our first match in the Champions League that just concluded, and our fifth match of the Premier League. So how are we feeling about the season so far?
I certainly, for the Champions League, I thought that was a pretty good performance. Athletic is a tricky away match, and so to come away with the 3 points is a nice way to start. Some of the post-game analysis or sort of post-phase analysis, or what is it? What are we? Match day one of all of this is that we were probably the best performance out of any of the English teams. Big surprise: Liverpool scored late to win. Big shocker there. City played a 10-man Napoli and they won. Chelsea lost. Spurs won against Villarreal, which whatever. So it was a potentially tricky away fixture. We got a result, which is pretty good. So overall, for the start, I feel fine when it comes to the Champions League. As far as the league goes, jokes aside, we are still second in the league, and City is still ninth. So I don't say that to be facetious. They are legitimately sitting in ninth place currently. Right. Are they going to stay there? Probably not. But given the kind of the circumstances we've been facing, or the kind of the way this early part of the season has developed, I do feel like overall we're in good shape. Liverpool won again yesterday. They beat Everton. They have 5 wins in their first 5 games. And look, at the end of the day, if Liverpool winds up winning all 38 games in the season, what are you going to do? I don't think they're going to do that, though. I think they have some. We've talked about some of their obvious weaknesses, and it's not like they don't know this. Like, they know their own weaknesses. But they're also going to get better too. That they're going to find ways, and we are too. Yeah, Gyökeres has been okay at points. Zubimendi has been a little up and down. I think as we get them more integrated into the team, we're going to start to see like the more fully how this is supposed to work. And the same with Eze, right? He's going to work his way into the starting lineup more. Yeah. So to sum up, what got a little rambly there? Champions League, feeling good. League, it's 5 games in. Everybody, let's calm down. There's a lot of season left to be played. As angry as I am about how this game played out today, we're okay.
It's also kind of funny just glancing at the table how all the other three teams that were tied with on points, the other two were one of three that are tied on points, all drew in this match, this fifth match. That's kind of funny that we all kept a pace with each other on points.
Yeah, except Liverpool, of course, but we'll deal with it.
Well, yeah, the all that are tied for second on points. Yeah. So, who was your player of the week?
I think this is an easy one this week. I think it was Gabriel Martinelli. It's sometimes trite to overemphasize the goals. Actually, I spent a good part of the midweek sort of talking myself into Gabriel and or Mosquera, given certainly the performances they had as center backs and our defense continuing. But I think at this point, both of those goals were so important to those games. Certainly the goal he scores. I mean, they're important to the games, and also they're just really class goals. I mean, that, the trap, the control, the run, the finish against Athletic was fantastic. And then we didn't really talk about it before. That chip over Donnarumma, that's incredible.
He barely touched the ball. It was like he flicked it with his toe, and it went exactly where it needed to go.
I mean, and Donnarumma, we saw him with PSG, right? He's a big man. That's a lot of keeper. You got to get the ball over, but it went up and over and just dropped. Oh my goodness, that's incredible. Think about how fast he's running to even get onto that ball. Whew. Whew, my goodness.
Yeah, that was really something. Yeah.
So yeah, Gabriel Martinelli saves our bacon twice this week. He's the player of the week. Stop pretending stop trying to be clever. It's Martinelli. Come on, man.
Yeah, definitely would be my first choice too. I arrived there for all the same reasons, but kind of digging in for a second choice. Going back to Bilbao, Eze and Madueke, I think Madueke very well could have been the player of the match. Maybe Eze also for Bilbao. They were both pretty good. Aside from Martinelli, in the City match, it's really tough because I did come away thinking Madueke was pretty good in the first half, but then he got subbed out and only played half the match. So playing 3 out of 4 halves for the week, it's kind of hard to pick him as the player of the week. But the only other person who I might pick would be Eze, who was in the reverse situation in the City match where he only came on for the second half. So I think I'm going to give it to Madueke for this week because I'm liking what I'm seeing from him. He's an interesting player. He plays differently from other players who I've seen for Arsenal, and it's good. I think when we're lacking, especially when we're lacking Saka, I'll be curious if we ever have him playing on the left side with Saka on the right again, because I think that could be a really powerful combination too. But who knows? Maybe with Eze, maybe we don't do that. But I want to keep seeing more of him. He's doing a good job.
I think that is an interesting idea of him on the left. I know we saw it a little earlier in the season, but I think that speaks a lot more to the unsettled nature of the left side of the midfield. I wouldn't be surprised, though. I expect him to play midweek for the League Cup game because I assume Saka is going to be ready to go the full 90 on next Sunday against Newcastle. So that's what. Yeah. But you could again, we're going to see a lot of this rotation, I think, over the next couple of weeks. So you're seeing just about everybody.
Yeah. So one thing I've wanted to ask you about, it's kind of been in my mind a little bit. So I'm starting to get even more into sports than I have been the last few seasons of a show. It's something that is becoming kind of the central aspect of my life in so many different ways. And I'm becoming more curious about the differences in how you and I approach things and kind of some of the things that I don't know. We talk a lot about Arsenal and we talk a lot about our experiences watching the matches and stuff like that. So I've got some questions. I'll give you the first one today. We'll hold some other ones for later shows, but in particular, how do you keep up on Arsenal news? So by way of contrast, let me lay out the fairly simple view for me first. I watch the matches And then sometimes when I have a moment and I'm in the Apple News app, I'm typically launching the Apple News app to play the puzzles that they have. But when I scroll down, when I see it and I scroll down a little bit, I'm presented with some headlines from The Athletic, because The Athletic is in Apple News. That's how I get that. And it knows that I like Arsenal and the Cubs and, a couple other things. And so it shows me Sports Illustrated and other stories from all over the place, because Apple News is an aggregator of different sources. So I'll see things and I'll kind of read some things that sound interesting to me. But it's all kind of casual and it's sporadic. It's like once or twice a week, probably. How does that compare to you? Like, how are you taking in Arsenal news and developments?
So it's not terribly different. They say it's probably just more. So I go into The Athletic and they've got their good selection of stories. I'm also a regular reader of the Ars blog and listen to some of the big podcasts like the Arscast, and you and I both listen to Handbrake Off, also from The Athletic. I'm also on a couple of group chats from the Houston Gooners. I don't really contribute much to them, but you'll see things being thrown out there, especially in transfer season. It got kind of wild. Just people trading around stories and some of the arguments that they have in there. And so, because I watch the games with other people, you're surrounded by people who you're talking about these things with. And so a lot of times I'll come into you having thought about some of this stuff and kind of work some of those ideas, or sometimes just repeating something that someone said that I thought, that was interesting. So it's a lot of stuff like that. And then you just add to that, I've got at this point 20 years of Arsenal, and it kind of, like anything else, the more you know about something, the way that impacts how you're able to analyze the information that you're getting too, right? So to me, it's easy to look at some stuff and sort of go, that's not important. That's not important, because I know it doesn't mean anything. It does mean sometimes, though, I do get like a little bit, we talked about today, sometimes I'll get a little sucked into some of the discourse, which, that's the thing. That's the thing, especially professional sports compared to, say, collegiate ones in the U.S. What people think about how good your team is really doesn't matter, because everything's structured. Like at the end of the day, if you accumulate enough points, you will either win the league, or in an American sport, you'll qualify for the playoffs or win your division. Like you will do certain things, you'll hit certain markers, and it doesn't really matter. Like, I don't think they're very good. College sports is a little different, rankings, polls, all that. But, in the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what people say about your team. If they keep winning, who cares? That's it. That's all that matters. That's it. You can't argue with that. And so I get sucked into that sometimes, which to my detriment. But I suppose it's better to get sucked into sports arguments than political ones. So, I don't feel bad. In that context, I don't feel really bad about it.
Typically, in this country, at least, it can be safer. So a couple follow-up questions. For one thing, you mentioned a group chat with the Houston Gooners. Because I'm technically minded, I'm into technology and stuff. I'm curious, what platform is that conversation
WhatsApp.
On? Okay. I had a feeling it would be that, or a Discord server or something like that. Okay.
That's WhatsApp. I mean, we also have a lot of international people, and this thing has grown for the years they've been doing it. So there were a couple guys went back and forth earlier this week, one of whom moved out of the city like a decade ago, and someone didn't realize it. You go into the game? No, I don't live in Houston anymore. So we laugh.
Yeah. And so also is most of it, so it's in person with your peer group at the Houston Gooners meetups. But then also it's all reading, like do you have ESPN or other like sports coverage on in the background while you're doing other things? I know a lot of people would just have ESPN on 24/7, like while they're doing other stuff or something like that.
Yeah, not anymore. Partly that has a lot to do with the way ESPN functions these days and what it is they do. I mean, also their soccer coverage generally tends to be very tightly focused. If you just leave it on all day, you're going to get a lot of talk about LeBron James. You're going to get a lot of talk about, I don't know, the Dallas Cowboys. Like, they have their topics. They're just going to kind of beat into the ground all day long.
Okay.
Yeah, to me that's not terribly helpful. ESPN has some articles here and there. It's not terrible coverage, but it feels a little trite compared. It's not nearly as extensive. I will say the statistics are good. If I'm looking up like what's the lineup or what's happened in the game, like I have ESPN's game center for looking at the lineup and some of the stats and just reminding, okay, that happened then, and it's 66.8% possession, and Martinelli came on for Timber. Like, so that's the kind of thing I can pull up and see, and I'll use them for. I mean, people get them from other sources too. It's generally all going to be pretty much the same.
Yeah, it should be. All right, cool. Well, thank you for that peek behind the curtain a little bit. What's coming up for next week?
So for next week, this week coming, another set of 2 games. We've mentioned it on Wednesday. We will play in the 3rd round of the League Cup, or the Carabao Cup, if you prefer the sponsorship name. Will be at Port Vale. Port Vale is a League 2 side. League 1, but recently promoted from League 2. That'll be Wednesday on Paramount Plus. Apparently, it is the last game of the round, and so if you're into that, you're really into that sort of thing, especially if we win, we ought to win, but especially if we win, the draw for the next round, the 4th round, will be held shortly after the end of the Arsenal Port Vale game. So, get your ping pong balls ready, and we'll see. Hopefully, we'll be looking and seeing who we're facing in the 4th round. I feel pretty good about that, but let's win first, and then we can talk about who's the draw in the 4th round.
Right. How many rounds are there before the round of 6? Oh, I guess there is. Is there a round of 16, or is it just a quarterfinal?
I believe the first time they name it is the round of 16. Hold on, let me look that up. EFL Cup.
Yeah.
I want to say there's
just curious.
5. I want to say it's 5. They go through the 5th round. And then after that, no, I'm sorry, it's only 4. So it's there's a preliminary round, the 1st round, 2nd round, 3rd round. That's where we are, and then the 4th round is going to be the round of 16, and then quarters, semis, final.
Okay, so yeah, it's crazy. Like, we enter so late that we're more than midway through.
Yeah, I guess depending on how you want to count it. There are 4 more rounds if we count the final after this one.
Yeah.
And this would be the 4th round, so we are pretty much sort of halfway. But this is an earlier tournament. Remember, the final is March 22nd, so well before before we get to the end of the league and Champions League, or even the FA Cup competition. So.
Yeah, there was an article I saw, I believe it was on The Athletic, but it may have been somewhere else, talking about Manchester City's view, which I guess is shared by other clubs too, of the Carabao Cup, where they just kind of piss on it a little bit. And maybe that's something we can talk about next week.
Yeah, big clubs tend to use it as a youth competition, and that's been the true case for a while. But how they handle youth. But anyway, League Cup on Wednesday, and then Sunday, we're the late game on Sunday again. This time at Newcastle. That's going to be our trip to St. James's Park. I would really like to tear their heads off, to be honest. Take out some of my City frustrations and some of my general Newcastle frustrations on them as well. Frankly, we owe a number of teams in this league a pretty good beating, but that's another thing altogether.
Right.
And then just quickly for watching purposes, Wednesday League Cup will be on Paramount Plus, and then Sunday Premier League will be on USA Network here in the United States.
On that note, it was interesting. They shifted this Manchester City match today to Peacock exclusive, where it was funny watching the replay. They had like a few minutes before the kickoff that was included in it, in which you heard Rebecca Lowe saying, "Okay, now's the time. If you want to watch this match, shift over from USA to Peacock Premium, where it will be streaming exclusively." So I had the pregame coverage on USA, like letting people know, "Okay, well, if you want to watch this, that's where you should go."
And it was their live pregame show in Kansas City, wasn't it?
Right. It was exactly the Fan Fest or whatever they call it. Right. The huge mob of people, seemingly equally divided between Arsenal and Manchester City jerseys. But it was
great town, Kansas City. Shout out Kansas City. That's a fun visit.
Cool. I haven't been there. I always think of W.C. Fields in the movie International Hotel. Is this Kansas City, Kansas, or Kansas City, Missouri?
And they do take that distinction seriously. That's all I'll say about that.
Thanks for joining us at Gooner U. If you're watching us on YouTube, you can also listen to the podcast version of our show on Apple, Spotify, and some other places. If you're only listening, try watching us on YouTube with the link in the show notes. Your homework for today is to tell another Gooner in your life about our show. Hopefully, you tell them it's good and worth their time, but you can complete the assignment by at least mentioning it even derogatorily. We record the show using Zencaster. If you'd like to try it out, you can support Gooner U by signing up using the link in the description, which also has links to everything we talked about and our socials. Again, my name is Dove, and you can find me on Twitter at Dove Frankel. With me, as always, is Keith, and you can find him in a pub watching Arsenal matches.
I'm exhausted. I have nothing clever to say. Come on, Arsenal.